Hi, my name is William Gregory, and I'm giving the talk today. And I have a ministry mentor, and he lives in Minneapolis. And I was talking to him, and he's a beautiful jewel. And he's probably in his early 70s, and he's seen some stuff. And he was talking to me, and he says, "So how many times a month are you preaching?" And I had to think about that. You know, he's from the Bible Belt, and I've never thought of this as preaching. You know, I've never thought of that. I'm not an expert at anything. I'm just a guy who's lived a life, and I've had some real life experience, and I've been brokenhearted and dragged through broken glass naked and bathed in lemon juice, and I've had moments of serious epicness where, you know, I beheld the beauty of now and cherished it. And But I don't feel like I'm preaching, and maybe that's because my idea of preaching is someone telling you what you should do or what you should be. And also, to me, it's like a feeling of the superior talking to the inferior, and goodness sakes, I don't think I'm superior to anybody. But if I were to preach, it would be about the inherent sovereignty that we are now. And it's an honor to speak of it. So, on a definition of sovereignty, I have here rightful status, independent, to have prerogative, the quality or state of being sovereign or having supreme power or authority. And this is something, goodness sakes, it just makes sense that everyone's sovereign. I mean, I didn't make myself. You know, I didn't make you. You know, we're all here together. So as I stand on this stage and I'm looking out upon all of you, I recognize that there's something within each one of you looking at me. And that's magic. And this idea of sovereignty hasn't always been accepted. It wasn't long ago that women weren't seen as being sovereign. They weren't allowed to own property. They weren't allowed to vote. It wasn't long ago that only rich white men could vote. And it wasn't long before then that everyone pretty much were peasants except a few nobles, and peasants had almost no rights at all. And there was this whole religion thing then where they would tell everyone that they were born in sin. Imagine that. I grew up thinking I was born in sin. Grew up thinking there was something defective about me. Grew up thinking that if I did everything right and prayed that just maybe I could go to heaven. Imagine living one's own life feeling like that. They would even carve gargoyles on the roofs of churches to scare people who went in to worship. So this idea of personal sovereignty is something that I believe we all possess, and yet few of us really realize the idea of personal sovereignty. And when I'm talking about personal sovereignty with us here now, it's not about owning property or having positions in life, PhDs, or being president or governor. It's personal sovereignty within our own selves. Personal sovereignty over what we think, what we read, how we spend our money, what we choose to give our attention to. Because we are inundated with information, with flashing screens, with all kinds of psychological brainwashing that we're not really aware of. And what everything is trying to steal is our attention. Whatever we focus our attention on grows. So, to talk about personal sovereignty as in how we live our lives. And right now, behind our thoughts, behind our emotions, behind our physical sensations, is the truth of what we are. The eternal witness. The part of us that existed before this body was born. and the part of us that exists beyond this body's last exhalation. One of the most beautiful things we could possibly do is to close our eyes and look within lovingly. To pay attention to our own thoughts. I remember the first time I started meditating, and I had a front row seat to the giant shit show of my mind. Oh my God. And I watched it with curiosity, because I can take any given interaction or moment and spin a whole story about that moment. If I'm in a bad mood, I'll spin a whole story, painting this person as the bad person when it was just me in a moment. And if I'm glowing, if I'm having a glowing moment, I could take a harsh insult, oh, he's just having a bad day. But for me, one of the first things about stepping into our personal sovereignty is realizing that we are not our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are an amalgamation of every movie we've watched, every childhood experience, everything that's influenced us. But the first step into sovereignty is to realize we are precious jewels of a loving cosmos. We're precious little babies walking around in grown-up bodies. And oftentimes we're scared little kids walking around in grown-up bodies. I remember one of the most beautiful moments of my life was realizing my parents were just scared little kids who made babies along the way, and I happened to be one of them. To realize that we're not our thoughts. And to be able to witness that, to step back enough to witness our thoughts going by, is one of the great things about meditation. And we don't have to close our eyes and sit in a Buddha position to do that. We can meditate as we wash the dishes, meditating as we drive down the road. But to know that we're not our thoughts, in many ways, sets us free. The title of this talk is Surrender into Sovereignty. And one thing that I realized was about surrendering. So I always thought about surrendering as being weak. And there's a part of me that promised I would never surrender to certain things, that I would hold that grudge till the day I died. And someday, somewhere, I will exact vengeance on that injustice. And then I through my own spiritual practice, the idea of forgiveness kept coming up. And I had times where I was given the advice to pray for the person that I hated. Pray, and I had stepdads here, I had my parents here, I had ex-wives here that I promised I would never forgive. And to actively pray for them, to imagine them smiling, to imagine them falling in love. And it hurt. It hurt, but I was willing. That's one of the great things of having life strike you humble, is you become willing. And so surrendering went from failing to winning, because I noticed my heart getting lighter. I noticed the tangles in my soul start to unravel. Sovereignty is something that each one of us can only claim for ourselves. No one can do that for us. In the old paradigm, we would have a savior or someone to focus on who was better than you, who could, help take you there. And that left us being helpless. We're dependent on someone else. But the idea that the only person that can really forgive us is us. Sweetheart, you are worthy of forgiveness. I noticed that as I surrendered these things, I found more and more freedom. So much of my life, my self-esteem came from the outside in. If I could be better than someone else, I felt better. And that was a double-edged sword, because then I would see someone who was better than me, and I felt less than. To realize our own sovereignty sets us free from having to source our self-esteem from this world. Realizing our own sovereignty sets us free from judging other people or perceiving judgment from others. Life went through a great effort to make these lives possible, for us to express our own true colors, our own true nature, with an easy, free feeling. And that's when we thrive. We can give ourselves our own sense of safety and set ourselves free from fear and shame. And I believe life is calling us forth for that now. Goodness sakes. So I heard in a dream one time, and it's like a poem. It's like spoken word. But I remember in my dream, it was when I was thinking about, all the suffering in the world. And it hurts. Goodness sakes, or sometimes I think about it and it just hurts. And I'm wondering, how can this be? What is this? And there have been times that I thought maybe I'm just destined to suffer. I remember when I was an alcoholic, practicing alcoholic, I couldn't stop drinking, and I was becoming just like my dad. And I was compromising all of my own integrity, and I couldn't stop. And I literally thought, I would be better off ending my life so my kids wouldn't have to have a dad who was a total loser. And so I thought, maybe this is just my destiny. Why should I expect anything? In fact, my older brother told me that because he was an alcoholic too, just like my dad and my dad's dad. I said, John, I'm drinking like you and Dad now. I can't stop. And all he had to say, well, it's about time. Why would you expect anything else? And I truly thought that. I truly thought maybe this is my destiny. Maybe I'm willing to suffer. So in a dream, I caught this poem-like thing. But it goes like this. It goes, darkness reminds me of light. Fear reminds me of love. Weakness reminds me of strength. And it repeated, darkness reminds me of light. Fear reminds me of love. Weakness reminds me of strength. And I sat with that for a while. And then the next part came later. It was, it is only because I come from light that darkness is unclear. It is only because I come from love that fear is uncomfortable. It is only because I am designed to be free that any degree of helplessness I find to be so disgusting. Yes. If I was designed to suffer, then suffering would feel good. It's only because we are designed to be free. It's only because we are designed to love. It is only because we are designed for light. And when I say light, goodness sakes, I don't just mean photons bouncing around the room. The idea of light, the idea of love, brings me to another poem. Do you want to hear it? I have a tale to tell, but first I should warn you, for this is a tale that will bring kings to their knees, cause oceans to boil, hearts will be broken, fortunes squandered, wars waged over this very tale. And it's all about lullabies, Butterflies, hummingbirds, fairy tales, waterfalls, rainbows, and shooting stars. Peaches, mangoes, cherries and strawberries and slow, wet kisses in the sultry summer sunset, or whatever that is. And whatever that is, I want to swim in it naked. I want to spread it over my golden brown toast and eat it in small bites. Whatever that is just, whatever that is true, whatever that is forgiving, whatever that is strong, whatever that is kind, whatever that is wise, whatever that is noble, whatever that is dignified, whatever that is honorable, whatever that is generous, whatever that is, hook me up because I'm so down. And when I talk about light, I talk about things like love, truth, integrity, compassion, patience, forgiveness, faith, self-respect. All those things, and I will tell you a secret, all of those things reside within us right now. Yes. So in some ways, surrendering into sovereignty is letting go of all of the opposite. Surrendering in sovereignty is paying attention to the thoughts that are going through our mind and choosing ones that make us feel whole and setting free the ones that drag us down. Being sovereign is listening to our own feelings. I'm a baby at listening to my feelings. I've been denying my feelings my whole life. Denying my feelings because I should be feeling something different. To listen to my own feelings. Being sovereign is the ability to set healthy boundaries, which is something I'm learning to do as an adult, and I still fail sometimes, but I've come light years. Living in our own sovereignty is taking action on what's in our highest good, even if it's just little baby steps. But taking action, something to demonstrate it in our life, even if we just sit down for 5 minutes and close our eyes and follow our breath. I love that meditation of just saying yes and then thank you. Yes. Yes to life. Yes to this moment. Much of my life, I've lived like this. To realize that our innocence is eternal. It's not something we can lose. It's not something fragile. It's there right now within us. To close our eyes and think about our innocence. I've closed my eyes and held my own me as a baby. I've closed my eyes and walked with me as a little boy, hand in hand. There's no limit to the amount of love we can give ourselves. There's no limit to the amounts of forgiveness we can give ourselves. Kindness we can give ourselves. And I will tell you now, as we sit here in this holographic simulation, that whatever this thing is designed to respond to the frequencies we emit. Life only wants to lift us up, to carry us over. Grace only wants to pave the way in front of us and invite us in a charming invitation forward. If we can just look within. It's kind of like Dorothy's ruby slippers. We're so caught up chasing the next thing, scrolling, judging the world. Goodness sakes, if we could stop and turn our attention in lovingly, our own true colors can begin to shine. And the thing about discovering one's own sovereignty, which I've learned, is you begin to see the sovereign in everyone you meet. And most truly I say to you, when you look at someone and look for the sovereignty in them, you bring that to the surface and give them permission to discover their own sovereignty. So in our sovereignty, let us pay attention to how we spend our money. Let us pay attention to who we vote for, to what we support. Because it's okay for us to demand honor, generosity, kindness, dignity in our government, in our communities. We happen to live in a republic. We can vote. Let us demonstrate our sovereignty in the part we play in our communities, in our families. When you go home and call your mom or your dad or your son or your daughter, and you listen to them as though they're sovereign beings, you are giving them the highest honor. Listening is a ninja Jedi superpower. When we take the time to listen, but we can't give away what we don't have. Until we can give it to ourselves, we can't give it to anyone else. And I believe that at this time, life is calling us forth for nothing less than discover the own worthiness and our own sovereignty within us. You are a precious love, and I wish you the best.